What is up, everybody? This is Adam. Welcome back to Fouled Out. We have arrived at Wild Card Weekend for the NFL. Matt is going to join me in just a moment to break down all six games from Super Cash Grab, gotta be on Monday Night Football now, Wild Card Weekend that I'm looking forward to. I think there's going to be some fun games. But before we get started, wanted to give a quick shout out to Robert Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriots. I've been extremely critical of Robert Kraft and the way that him and his son have run the Patriots over the last couple of years. So I think it's only fair that when they do something that I agree with, that I give them props on the podcast as well. They fired head coach Gerard Mayo after the game against the Bills last Sunday in a move that I really wanted to see, and I'm very happy it happened. I just wasn't sure that we would see it this year with Mayo being the pre-appointed successor to Bill Belichick and like the handpicked guy from Robert Kraft. I think it takes a lot of guts to admit that you were wrong and move on after only one season of this guy. But it was a horrible mistake ever handing Gerard Mayo the keys to the New England franchise. And it was an even bigger mistake that they didn't even interview anybody else last season because they had built into Gerard's contract as not even like defensive coordinator, like co-defensive coordinator, that he would be the successor to Bill Belichick once Belichick was gone. Uh, and it was an absolute disaster of a season. So for Kraft to come out after that and be like, hey, this is my fault. I take accountability. And he's putting his money where his mouth is. He's got to pay Gerard for the buyout, and he also has to pay a new coach. That's I think that takes a lot for him to admit that. So props to Robert Kraft on that. It was absolutely the right decision. And it sounds like Mike Vrabel is going to be the next coach of the New England Patriots, which I think would just be a phenomenal hire for them. And it's exactly what I've been asking for on this podcast for months, pretty much since the Patriots started going downhill with Gerard Mayo. I was like, we need to get rid of this guy. And it seems like we are on the verge of that. And I will be back on this podcast celebrating when it happens. So props to Kraft. Now go out, get your guy in Vrabel, and let's get going. Also, before we get started, just a reminder, you can reach out to us, fouledoutsports@gmail.com. Really appreciate you guys listening, and we'd love to hear from you. Matt and I are going to give you our picks for all six of the wild card games, as we do every year on this podcast. We'd love to hear yours as well, or just reach out to us and tell us where you think we're wrong or where you think we're crazy. So with that said, let's grab Matt. Let's break down Super Cash Grab Wildcard Weekend. Let's go. All right, Matt is here, fresh off of week 18 of the NFL season. Matt, how you doing, buddy?
Good. How about you?
I am fantastic. I make fun of this weekend every year for super wild card cash grab weekend by the NFL. They not only expanded the field, so we have six games this weekend, but also they have to put them on like Saturday night, Sunday night, and now Monday night football. Like expanding the playoff field was one thing. Having a Monday night football playoff game in the first week in wild card weekend was totally another for me. But I'm ready for playoff football. I think a lot of the action on week 18, we saw some of the worst quarterbacks that we've ever seen in the NFL taking snaps again, like Jimmy Garoppolo, Bailey Zappi, Carson Wentz. Like we just saw all sorts of really bad quarterback play this past weekend, and I'm
Yeah,
ready for big games between good teams that actually mean something.
absolutely.
So Matt and I are going to break down all six games and give you guys picks like we do on the pod every year. But before we get started, just to clean up a few things from the regular season, I ended up winning win ranges by one. Last week we mentioned that Matt was up by one and we both had six open.
hmm
Uh, Matt killed me on the playoff teams. You did get seven of the eight division winners. The
hmm
only one that screwed us is the Falcons.
Which we should have known better.
Yeah, wish I could quit you. Gambling picks, we finished up 13 units for the year. So if you remember, our unit size was $20. We finished up $260 for the year with $213 of that coming within the last 3 weeks of the season. So it got really hot there at the end. Especially last weekend, we had Jamar Chase for the first touchdown of the Bengals Steelers game
Yeah.
at plus 550. Baker Mayfield to throw 2 touchdowns. We end up hitting 4 or 5 this past week. And when you hit 4 or 5 and you hit the long shot, especially at plus 550,
Yeah.
which was the best one that we hit all year, save that for last. That's pretty damn good. So yeah, like I said, finishing up 13 units, $260 on $20 unit sizes. Pretty good year, especially for the first time that we did that segment on the podcast. And then for the bolds, we mentioned that Matt had hit 1.5, I had hit 2, and I had a third open. The Las Vegas Raiders end up tied with the Baltimore Ravens for most roughing the passer penalties in the league. So I either get 3 or 2.5, but still pretty good. They both had 7 this year, which was the
Yeah.
most in the league. And then for playoff picks, a reminder from last year, I ended up 10-3, which was tied for the best that we've done on the podcast.
hmm
There was one year we both went 10-3, and I forget which year it was, but I want to say it was the year that the Rams beat the Bengals in the championship.
Yeah.
I want to say it was that year. And then Matt was one game behind me at 9-4. So we're going to do our best to beat that this year. I feel like this weekend, the wild card weekend, is the toughest weekend. I mean, probably one because there's the most games, but also two, I don't know about you, but I really don't feel great about my picks in 4 of these 6 games right now.
Feel better about these than you do, but I will say that there is more uncertainty in these matchups than we've had in previous years of this wild card round. After kind of sitting with it for a little bit, some of the matchups that I was initially kind of unsure of, I kind of started to feel a little bit better about it.
Well, maybe you can talk me into it through the
Yeah.
course of the podcast. We were 5-1 last year, wild card weekend. The only one we got
hmm
wrong was the Cowboys losing to the Green Bay Packers, which pissed me off so much that we got that one wrong because it was so obvious in retrospect. But 5-1 still pretty good. I feel like last year was a lot easier though because you had games like Miami at Kansas City, and it was just like, okay, we
hmm
we know what's happening here. But without further ado, the first game of Super Cash Grab Wild Card Weekend. Saturday at 4:30, we have the LA Chargers at the Houston Texans. Currently, the line as of Wednesday, January 8th at 8:41 p.m. is Chargers by 2.5. I'm probably going to get this game wrong, Matt. That's, that was where I landed on this because I I honestly don't want to bet on either of
It
these teams.
it doesn't matter which way you bet, you're going to get it wrong.
Yeah, it's Schrodinger's playoff game where we've identified the Texans for quite a few weeks now as a team
Mhm.
that we wanted to bet against in the first round of the playoffs. It was like the Texans
Yeah.
and the Falcons were the team I was drooling to bet against.
Yeah, I mean with the Texans, it's been like what close to 10 weeks now that we've been like, yeah, yeah, they're gonna win the division, but they're one and done.
Probably going to bet against them. And then
Yeah,
that was a lot easier a couple weeks ago when it looked like they were going to play the Baltimore Ravens.
yeah,
Instead, they're home for the LA Chargers, who, as big as their turnaround has been this year and as excellent as they have been all season, they're the Chargers. And if we know one thing about the Chargers, it is that they will charge. You don't know when it's going to happen, but you 100% know it's going to happen. The Chargers are like that little rocket game on DraftKings. You ever played that? It's in like
yeah.
DraftKings Casino where you bet on the little rocket and it starts going up and up and up and up. And like the longer you wait, the more money you win. But eventually the rocket explodes. And if you're still on the rocket, you lose all your money. That rocket is the LA Chargers, where it just It's been going up all season, and I know it's going to explode. It's just like, okay, when do I get off?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I feel like from an on-field perspective, uh, points are going to be relatively tough to come by in this game. So LA's offense actually scored a little more than I thought they did this season. They're 23.6 points per game. Houston was 21.9, which was a major step back for them.
Yeah.
Houston's defense also allowed 21.9 points per game. And then LA's defense was number one in points against at 17.7. So I kind of look at this as like it's two good defenses. Although I think at times LA has been a bit of a paper tiger this season where they look really good on paper. Some of the better offenses have carved them up, like the Ravens. But at the same
Well, in
time,
fairness, the Ravens are covering up everyone.
I know, but
So
I was gonna say I don't know that the Texans offense is what I would consider one of the better offenses in the league.
no.
One of the main things I looked at is that the Chargers really don't make a lot of mistakes. They had 9 turnovers this year, only 9, which is second best in the entire league.
How is someone having less turnovers than that?
It was actually the Bills. They had 8 giveaways this season and 32 takeaways. So their turnover margin is plus 24. So somehow the Bills, with Josh Allen, who has been more mistake prone or more turnover prone than any other quarterback in the league over the last however many seasons, only turned it over 8 times. The Chargers are second with 9, and then Baltimore is third with 11. So pretty good teams.
That's pretty hilarious.
Yeah. So the Chargers only had 9 turnovers this year, which is second best. Houston forced 29, which was fifth. Houston had 19 turnovers, which was 11th. And then the Chargers, as good as their defense was, they actually don't force that many. They forced 21, which is 13th. So I don't know. I just kind of look at it as a game where points are going to be pretty tough to come by. Whoever makes the mistakes, or whoever, like, I guess you could look at it as whoever plays mistake-free football is probably going to come out of this one ahead, because when it's
Yeah.
difficult to score, when you have that big mistake and you set up the other team with a short field and give up points like that,
Hmm.
it's even more of a backbreaker in a game like this that I think is going to be something like, 24-17 or like 21-13, something like that.
Yeah.
The other big concern I have for the Texans is, like you said, like over the course of the last 10 games, that the offense has it is actually kind of crazy how big of a step back the offense has taken this season, considering that they kept offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick. I know they had Diggs for a long time and they were doing well with Diggs, but he got hurt. Tank Dell is obviously gone. Joe Mixon has absolutely fallen off a cliff near the end of the season,
Who
which,
could have predicted something like that?
yeah, who saw that coming when he was getting 30 touches a game to start the year? Um, but over the course of his last 10 games, CJ Stroud has 9 touchdowns and 8 picks. He's been sacked 36 times in 10 games. So I just, like, when I said that Houston was not one of the better offenses in the league, I was being very, very generous.
I mean, let's call a spade too. Over the last 10 games, CJ Stroud he's been bad. He has not played good football. We can acknowledge that maybe there are some environmental factors that are contributing to that, but like that's that excuse isn't really being given to anyone else. And you were primarily operating with the same weapons and offensive line that you had the year before. So,
Yeah,
like,
I think people just can't get over the fact that they expected him, like, after how great his rookie year was,
mm,
they expected him to take a big leap this year.
yeah,
And we talked about this last week, is that he actually regressed, and that
yep,
that's just kind of how the NFL goes sometimes, is that your second year, maybe you don't take a jump, maybe he does a little better
Mhm.
next year, maybe not. Like maybe he's
Yeah,
never as good again as he was his rookie season. But the fact of the matter remains is that he and the Texans offense are not playing good football right now.
yeah.
And literally the only thing stopping me from telling you to pound the Chargers is that they're the goddamn Chargers. And it's the Rocket game. I know the Rocket's going to explode. Do I stay on it for super cash grab wild card weekend?
Yeah.
And in my case, I think I do. I think I have to take the Chargers here. Um, like topping off what I've already said, the Chargers are ninth in DVOA this season. Houston is 16th, which I believe is
Yeah.
the worst of any playoff team.
Hmm.
So I I was listening to a podcast where they were talking about like who do you think the worst playoff team is right now? And they're like, is it Pittsburgh? Is it Denver? Like who is it? And I was like, I honestly think it might be Houston.
Hmm.
And I say all this to say that my pick is the Chargers, and I go back to what I said at the very beginning of this breakdown. I am going to be wrong. 100% going to be wrong because I'm trusting the goddamn Chargers.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going with the Chargers here too. Um, I'm more bullish on it than you. Do I feel good about picking the Chargers to win a playoff game? No. No, because like history has taught me that that is just not the thing to believe in. But like I also kind of sat there and thought like is this Houston team really the team that I think is going to be able to take advantage of the Chargers charging?
If you took the stickers off the helmets and or like if you gave me blind resume, I would be like, this is the bet of the weekend. You have to pound this away team.
Yeah.
But I just keep looking at that lightning bolt and thinking about how the last time the Chargers made the playoffs, they blew a 31-point lead to the Jacksonville Jaguars. You want to tell me that Houston isn't the team it doesn't matter who they play, Matt. They're going to charge. This is the definition of charging. The Chargers were 14-2 and lost and fired their coach. The Chargers were number one in offense and number one in defense and didn't make the playoffs one year. Another year, they were number one in offense and number one in defense and 32nd in special teams and lost to the Patriots at home. This is literally exactly what this franchise has done to
Yeah.
us over and over and over again. And we're like, Houston's not that good. I'm not that worried about it.
I
No,
just
you
don't
need
think
to be
Houston
worried
can.
about it. You need to be worried about it, Matt. Justin Herbert will throw 3 pick sixes and it'll be 21-17. And we'll be sitting here next week like, how did we not see this coming?
That is stern but fair.
They are the ultimate team that is going to fuck you. Ultimate. Besides, like, it's regular season Falcons, postseason Chargers, baby. We're back. But I agree with you. So you're picking the Chargers.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
part of this here too is like I'm kind of betting on Jim Harbaugh at this point. Like I just the the guy has turned around every situation that he's walked into.
Yeah. Chargers gonna charge doesn't necessarily mean it has to happen the first week of the playoffs.
Yeah,
It can
it can
happen the
happen the second.
second week against the Chiefs, which is exactly when it's going to happen.
Oh yeah.
Also, low key, sneaky legacy game for Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
That's something we've talked about frequently with Herbert. He's been in the league for 5 years. He started 79 games, no playoff wins.
Yep.
He's made the playoffs once. And as I mentioned, they were either up 31 or 24 against the Jags. I forget what the exact number was,
It was a lot.
but he wasn't particularly good in that game. Completed 58% of his passes for 273 and one touchdown. And obviously, they blow a massive lead to the Jackson. I think they were up like 24-0 and then 31-7 or something like
Hmm.
that. But he's a guy that we've talked about all the time. It's like, man, the stats are so impressive. People are always saying he's a top five
Hmm.
quarterback. We talked about this last week, but the stats went down this season,
Yeah.
but the wins went up. and we're still trying to define kind of what that means for Justin Herbert as a player.
Hmm.
But one thing I can tell you is that he could really use a playoff win on his resume if he wants to stay
Yep.
in that top five quarterback conversation.
Yeah, yeah, he's a guy that I think is really hard for me to place in my rankings. I think he's easily in the top 10. I don't think that I could justify him any lower than that. But yeah, because of the lack of playoff appearances and success, um, which I normally am willing to be somewhat forgiving of, but like it's not always been that like well the defense was ass and that's why. So there's been more to it. So just really hard to place it all.
Yeah, it is. And I say this more as like when you listen to people rank quarterbacks or talk about
Hmm.
quarterbacks, they basically treat
Yeah.
you like if you don't have Herbert in your top five, that you're insane. They're like, how, oh
Yeah.
my God, how do you it's Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, Burrow, Herbert. Like you can't have any other top five. And like, okay, so then go out there and prove it to me in a
Yeah.
really important game.
Right.
So we both got the Chargers. Game two, Saturday at 8 p.m. is the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Baltimore Ravens. This is currently Ravens by 9.5. I saw it. I think it opened at 9. It got up to 10. It's at nine and
Mhm.
a half right now. My first impression of that line is it's way too high for me to be comfortable. It's just way too high. And I understand that it's based on the fact the Ravens beat Pittsburgh 34-17 like 2 weeks ago in week 16.
Mhm.
Also, the Ravens won their last four games of the season, outscoring their opponents 135-43. And the Steelers lost their last four games of the season, getting outscored by opponents 109-57. So the Steelers were 10-3 at one point and took an absolute shit to end the year.
Yeah.
The Ravens are scalding hot and are again in this position, like the same position they were in last year, where DVO, they're number one in DVOA. They pulled ahead of the Lions, and everybody's like, "Whoa, watch out for the Ravens, man! The stats say they're the team to beat." So they're a popular betting team right now. I just think like a Pittsburgh versus Baltimore game in the playoffs, I'm just not comfortable
Yeah.
betting 9.5 points on that. I could see the world where Baltimore beats the ever loving shit out of Pittsburgh based on
Oh, for
how both
sure.
teams have been playing.
Because we've seen it.
Yeah. But am I comfortable enough going into a 8:30 Saturday night game
Hmm.
in Baltimore with this just with the history of these two teams and being like
Hmm.
the Ravens are going to win this by 9.5 or more. I I just can't. I can't pull the trigger on the betting aspect. And I'm not going to
Yeah.
bet on the Steelers to cover that because I don't trust it either.
No.
Like this is a stay away from me from a gambling perspective.
Yes. Yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah. Here's another question for you. When you're trying to pick this game, do we trust playoff Lamar? He's 2-4 in his career, 57% completion percentage in those 6 games with 6 touchdowns and 6 picks. Do we trust playoff John Harbaugh to run the goddamn ball? It's this
That
is a
might be the
game.
bigger question for me.
While I'm not comfortable betting the Ravens by 9.5,
Hmm.
the Ravens should win this game.
Yeah.
But what we've seen in past years is that all of a sudden all of their brains implode during the postseason and they run the ball 6 times and throw 57 times and they're like, why did we lose? They go into we need to prove to everybody that Lamar is the greatest quarterback of all time mode. thanks for getting us here, Derrick Henry, but it's Lamar's time to shine mode. So I'm hoping that for their sake that it's different with Derrick Henry this year because he's Derrick Henry and not Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins and these other guys. But there's that fear in me that like we see playoff Lamar, we see playoff game plan John Harbaugh, and the Steelers defense is good enough to make this a really like mucky type of game and like kind of drag
Hmm.
the Ravens down into the muck with them and be like,
Yeah.
yeah, like we know Russell Wilson's not winning this game for us, but maybe TJ Watt can.
Yep.
And all of a sudden we're sitting here in the fourth quarter and it's like, how is this game 17-16 and the Steelers have the ball with 6 minutes left? And it's like it's just a weird game and we're looking at like Chris
Yep.
Boswell trying to get in position to hit a game winner.
Absolutely. Like that's a very real possibility. This is going to sound really random, like a really random question, but it's coming back to this subject. Do you know what Saquon Barkley's yards per carry was this year?
5.6.
Close. 5.8.
No, pretty good.
Guess what Derrick Henry's yards per carry was this year?
Oh, 6.4.
5.9.
Oh, damn it. I thought it was going to be higher. Yeah.
We really should have had two 2,000-yard rushers this year,
Yeah.
which is insane to say out loud, by the way. But um that alone makes it inexcusable to not fully utilize him in this game. The Lamar legacy shit is not reason to air the ball out. Him, you guys winning the games alone is enough for his legacy.
Yeah.
He's done the stuff with the stats.
We talked about this like ad nauseum last year with the Chiefs
Hmm.
debacle is that like if you want to prove he's the GOAT, he needs to win Super Bowls.
Yeah.
He needs to win playoff games. You can't be sitting here at 2-4 in the
Hmm.
playoffs and be like, well, he's got two MVPs, pretty damn good. Because that just makes you James Harden.
Yeah. What continually seems to happen is the kickoff happens, the game starts, and they randomly say, "Hey, this is the game where we want you to wear the cape for 4 quarters, Lamar." I was actually I got sucked into a Reddit debate with someone earlier this week about that
Just
with
never ends well.
on on Stafford. When like when you ask that of a quarterback, you can never expect them to win you a game. Never. Like that is not how you win football games.
Yeah,
And
especially because they're not going to have Zay Flowers.
yeah,
It sounds like so. Like your best or second best receiving option is down. Like the best way to win this game is honestly like play good defense against
hmm,
Russell Wilson, which shouldn't be that hard, and then run the ball with Derrick Henry, have Lamar on some design runs, let him throw it like between 17 and 20 times, run it 30 to 40 times, whatever the play
yep,
count's going to be, and take care of business. Do not pull out the game plan from the Chiefs game last year where you run the ball
no,
6 times.
yeah,
So I'm picking Baltimore. I'm assuming that you're going Baltimore as well.
yeah, yeah.
You know the Steelers haven't won a playoff game since 2016. They're 0 for their last five. They've been outscored 202 to 134 in those 5 games. And their last two playoff games were against the Chiefs and Bills, and they got annihilated in both games.
Hmm.
I It's very confusing. Like speaking of legacies, like how how does that affect Tomlin's legacy? Is that this team just seems to frequently get to the playoffs only to get their asses handed to them by better teams? And it's like, should do we say wow, Tomlin's a great coach for getting this far with Kenny Pickett and Russell Wilson and like all these shitty guys he's had, or is it like he's a good regular season coach but not a great playoff coach? I don't know. That's not it's just
I
another hard one to place.
it is. I also don't know how good I feel about giving him a pass when like yeah, okay, like Kenny Pickett wasn't great. You made some quarterback moves this offseason. You were undefeated with one of your quarterbacks this season, and then you made the change and never went back to that guy.
And we've like hardly seen Fields.
Yep.
It's so weird to me. Is like
Hmm.
they're like no packages, no maneuvers. Even when
Yeah.
Russell Wilson's playing bad, they don't bring him back in. They're like, this is our guy, ride or
Yeah.
die.
Yep. And it's not that like okay, well like Russell's struggling, so I think we should go back, but it's like it sets a re like how does that look in the locker room when uh you hadn't lost a game with Fields at all, and then you start losing games with Wilson, largely because he's playing bad, and you keep rolling with him. It just it really kind of takes away any credibility that there's a meritocracy there. It just seems like, oh well, Russell Wilson is the veteran, and so I'm going to play the veteran.
Yeah, I don't understand it, but they're gonna ride or die with him, and they're probably gonna die with him
Yeah,
against Baltimore this weekend. But game three, we now go to Sunday at 1 p.m. for Denver Broncos at the Buffalo Bills. This is currently Buffalo by 8.5, which I just want to say this that the Buffalo Bills are favored by less against the 7 seed than Baltimore is favored over Pittsburgh.
yeah,
I also think it's kind of weird that the three AFC games go first, but then
yeah,
I kind of look at them versus the NFC games, and the NFC games have much tighter spreads and like better narratively. I guess I get it, but it's just odd. I feel like Buffalo is a really weird matchup for Denver because one of Denver's biggest strengths is they can stick Pat Surtain on your number one wide receiver and take him out of the game.
hmm
But I have no idea where Surtain I have no idea where Surtain goes in this game. It's like, is he on Shakir in the slot or Amari Cooper or Mac Hollins? Like the the thing that's interesting about this Buffalo offense is like the wide receiver core doesn't
yeah,
have like that guy, but it's so deep around Josh Allen and James Cook
yeah,
that it works. And I think they finished like ninth in passing, ninth in rushing, something like that this season. It's a very
hmm
balanced attack. It's a very dangerous attack, but it's not like this is the guy we need to focus on. I mean, obviously the guy you need to focus on is Josh Allen, and
yeah,
but that's not like a this isn't like a let's stick Pat Surtain on Josh Allen and
yeah.
take him out of this game kind of situation.
And the problem is, as you said, like the guy you've got to focus on is Josh Allen. Well, okay, like your options are, all right, well, let's play man. Okay, well, now your defensive backs have turned their back to him, and either someone's going to win their coverage and he's going to beat you that way, or he's going to take off and run, and there's nobody paying attention to him. Or you play zone and he's just going to pick you apart. Or you blitz and then and then he's gonna read the blitz and throw the ball where you blitz from and just pick you apart that way. Like when he's playing the way that he has been playing this year, there just isn't an answer.
Yeah, I really honestly think the way to beat Buffalo in the playoffs is you're just going to have to beat them in a shootout
Yep.
because their defense is very bad. And I know that all the starters didn't play against the Patriots week 18, but watching Joe Milton go out there in his first career start and do what he did against NFL level players running Buffalo's scheme somehow made me even more concerned about Buffalo's defense than I was before. And I was already very concerned about it. And then
Yeah.
like Joe Milton is like running around and throwing fucking darts all over the place. And I was like, man, can Buffalo stop anybody? But I just don't think that Bo Nix and the Denver offense have enough firepower to keep up with Josh Allen for 3 hours.
No.
And I can see this game being like 14-14 and people being like, holy shit, what is going on here? And then ending like 42-28. And it's just like, yeah, just Josh Allen just went ham. We just couldn't keep up with him.
Hmm.
Although like Denver's been another excellent story this season.
Yes.
But I
Yes.
I feel like we're obviously I'm picking Buffalo. Are you assuming you're picking Buffalo as well?
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like we're headed towards a collision course of Buffalo and Baltimore in round two, which it just it's such bullshit with the Chiefs being the 1 seed. And not only are they going to get the 1 seed, but they're going to get probably the Chargers in the second round, and the Chargers are just going to charge, and the AFC Championship's just going to be in Kansas City again. But I'm looking
Yep.
forward to that second round Baltimore versus Buffalo game because that would be an incredible one.
Yeah, hopefully it's more competitive than the last time we saw that matchup.
Yeah. Well, I'm assuming we're going to get that game, so we'll talk about it next week.
Yeah.
Uh, but I have some thoughts on how a game like that may go in Buffalo. Anything else you want to add to Buffalo, Denver? I didn't spend a ton of time on it in my because
No.
I feel very confident in
Um,
Josh Allen.
yeah, if it weren't for Josh Allen, and it might still very much still be true, who knows? But I haven't looked at the weather, but this is gonna be in Buffalo. So I'm assuming it's not only going to be cold, but it's probably going to be a ton of snow because just from the fact that it is Buffalo, I feel like I just assume it's always snowing. Um, and like that in and of itself could potentially, you know, slow down the scoring enough to kind of keep Denver in it longer than expected. Um, but I don't expect that this is the game that is going to trip up Josh Allen.
Yeah. Buffalo, it's going to snow Friday, Saturday, Monday, and Tuesday, but not Sunday. So maybe snowy conditions, but I I think even in the conditions in Buffalo that this team has learned enough of a lesson to be like, we can run the ball if we need to run the ball.
Yeah.
Like it's been such a huge part of their attack this season between Josh Allen's
Hmm.
legs and James Cook and Ray Davis and all these guys that like it's another one though where I'm looking at them just like I look at Baltimore and I'm like, do not go back to what we've seen in the past. Don't
Between Josh Allen's legs, huh?
just keep running the ball. Yeah, Josh Allen using his legs. Oh, between Josh Allen's legs. Yes.
There it is.
That too, because it's a very important part of Buffalo's attack between Josh Allen's legs.
It's penis.
Uh, Now we switch over to the NFC finally with the 4:30 Sunday game, which is the Green Bay Packers at the Philadelphia Eagles. It is Eagles by 4.5. Matt, this is where I need you to talk me into this because I think I know where you're going here, and I really struggled with this one. This is probably my toughest pick of the weekend.
For me, it really just comes down to like one simple fact. Packers haven't beaten anybody good, like at all. They've lost. to every single good team they've played. And if people are going to spend all season long talking about how the Eagles are back and that they're a threat to the Lions and the Vikings, and I mean, shit, they won what, 13 games? No, 14 games this year.
Yeah, 14-3.
Um, they won 14 games this year. Uh, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that they're still a pretty damn good football team, even if they still have some flaws. Even if I don't fully trust Jalen Hurts, uh, because he has not quite looked like the same passer that he looked like he was, you know, 2, 3 years ago. Um, I haven't seen anything from this Packers team that makes me think that they can beat them. And it's not just that they have to beat them, they have to go into Philly and win. And like, I don't think this is a mentally tough football team.
I wish this was Green Bay versus Dallas, because then I would know what to do. Just like, no, I know exactly what to do here.
We didn't last time.
I still makes me so mad that I didn't mention this when we picked the Chargers over Houston, but like that game, the Chargers and Houston game reminds me of the Vikings and Giants game from years ago, where we're like, we're gonna
Yeah.
bet against the Vikings, and then it's like, but it's the Giants, and we ended up picking the Vikings, and then the Giants won. And I'm like, I'm not making that mistake again, and I'm not making the mistake to ever pick Dallas over Green Bay again, ever in anything. The My biggest fears for this game, for both sides, is the health of the quarterbacks. So Jalen Hurts missed the last two games with a concussion, and he should be back this weekend. But I feel like there's a version of this game where Jalen Hurts like gets reconcussed because once you've had a
Yep.
concussion, it's way easier to get another one. And it's
Yeah.
only been 2 weeks, and he's gonna have to use his legs in this game. And then it's like, I picked Philly. I feel good about that. And then all of a sudden, I'm watching Kenny Pickett try to throw into the teeth of the Green Bay defense, and I'm like, oh god. But same thing with Love because he hurt his elbow last week against the
Mhm.
Bears, which is a weird game. Um, Also, Green Bay is third in DVOA this season, while Philly is fifth. So, I mean, DVOA says it's going to be a really good game, but I feel the same way about Green Bay, where I've watched them a lot this season, and I just don't understand how they're third in DVOA.
Yeah.
I don't, I don't get that, but Philly, it's kind of like a strength on strength matchup too, because Philly is second in rushing and 29th in passing, and Green Bay is seventh against the rush. But really, my thing is like being seventh against the rush is one thing, and like stopping NFL running backs is one thing, and then trying to stop Saquon Barkley for three
Yep.
hours is a
Exactly.
completely different thing.
I was waiting for you to get there.
Yeah. But on the other hand, I love Love.
I know you
I
do.
love Love, and I have a vested interest in him winning this game. He finished the year pretty strong. There was a time they had beaten like the 49ers 38-10, the Dolphins 30-17. They had that like really close 3-point loss to the Lions on Thursday Night Football, and then they pounded the Seahawks and the Saints. And I was like, oh man, I'm like, I thought it was going to be Green Bay at the Falcons round one. I was like, I'm going to smash the shit out of that. I'm so excited. And then they end the year. They have that like loss to the Vikings. I think really took the wind out of their sails. And then the Bears game is the Bears game. Love exited with a elbow thing. It was weird, but I look
It's
at the
still hilarious.
I know, but I look at the Vikings game, and that Vikings game concerns me more than that Bears game does for the Packers. Because Sam Darnold threw all over them, and then came back the next week against the Lions and looked like absolute dog shit. And I'm like, what? why did you let this man throw for 350 on you? I don't understand it. So I guess I'm going to pick Philly. I don't feel good about it. This is the one I feel the worst about. And I feel like I'm going to ask the question at the end of the podcast. If we have the same six picks, I'm going to be like, okay, if we parlay all of these, who fucks us? And I feel like it's Philly. I feel like it's like Jalen Hurts. Uh, Game 5, the Washington should be fighting Georges at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is Sunday, 8:30, Sunday Night Football. Uh, Matt, I kind of expected Washington to be favored in this game.
Hmm.
It's Tampa by 3.
Yeah. I mean, I think that what that tells me is why Vegas is saying, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like they're like, we're not sure, and Tampa's home, so we're
Yep.
giving them the points. But like home field advantage has been like 1.5 to 2 points the last couple of years. So basically, what they're trying to say is on a neutral field, Tampa's favored by 1, or it's a pick 'em. And I look at this matchup and I understand why. I think a lot of this comes down to whether or not Tampa Bay can stay patient with their run game.
Mhm.
So Tampa's offense, for people who have not paid attention to the Bucks this season, their offense is sneakily awesome. They were third in yards, third in passing yards, fourth in rushing yards, fourth in points, and first and third down conversion percentage this season on offense. So they can do everything. Baker Mayfield threw 42 touchdowns this
Yep.
season, but Washington's defense is third against the pass and 30th against the run. And also, Marshawn Lattimore owns Mike Evans and is very much in his head. And you'll remember that Washington traded for Marshawn Lattimore from the Saints this season. So the question to me is like, can Tampa keep Jaden Daniels in the Washington offense on the sideline and pound the ball with Bucky Irving, Rashad White, and I think we see some Sean Tucker in this game because they need to, because Tampa is the exact opposite defensively of Washington. So Washington, third against the pass, 30th against the run. Tampa, fourth against the run, 29th against the pass. So one team defends the pass and not the run. The other team defends the run and not the pass. And I see like two versions of this game. One is Tampa's able to control the game, keep Jaden Daniels on the sideline, frustrate him, put a lot of pressure on a rookie playing a road playoff game,
Hmm.
and win this. The other version of the game is that Washington gets up early and never looks back and just throws like all over this Tampa defense. And I just don't put it past Jaden Daniels because like I think all season I've been looking for reasons to kind of doubt the Washington should be fighting Georges, and
Yeah.
they just keep being amazing. And it was during that Washington Falcons game where I texted you and I was like, this just might be the best rookie quarterback we've ever
Yeah.
seen. Like,
Well, and I think the reality there is too, though, that if that's what Jaden Daniels does, there is nothing saying that Baker Mayfield isn't gonna get on a heater and like go toe to toe with him. Because you can say all you want about Marshawn Lattimore, like when Baker gets on a heater, he don't fucking care, and he might just get it in there anyways.
gotta love the Bake Show. 42 touchdowns, 16 interceptions, which was tied for the league with Kirk Cousins
Yeah.
this season. So that's kind of the thing is like, what version of Tampa's offense do we get is like if they're pounding the ball, controlling the clock, Baker's throwing off play action. Like I think guys like Cade Otton and Jalen McMillan are going to be critical in this game. And that's what kind of scares me is like if Chris Godwin was out there, I would be very comfortable picking Tampa Bay. But if Marshawn Lattimore and Mike Evans are off on the sideline punching each other in the face the whole game, Tampa needs another one of their pass catchers to step up.
Yeah.
And Jalen McMillan has 8 touchdowns on like 43 catches this season, and he's been very hot down the stretch.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to be really important in this game.
Hmm.
But the most important piece I really think is my boy, my guy from the NFL draft, Bucky Irving, who was a revelation, stealing Rashad White's job this
Hmm.
season. Rushed for over 1,000 yards. We were talking about yards per carry. He had 5.4 this season and has just been awesome for them. So I just
Yeah.
I see this game going like either way. I really think that this is the highest scoring game of the weekend just because of what I laid out with the defenses that
Hmm.
we can see a lot of points here and maybe it is just an awesome like Jaden's cooking and Baker's like I'm not getting shown up by a rookie and they just go toe to toe for 3 hours.
Yeah. That's entirely possible. Um, but yeah, no, they and I do think that, like you said, Bucky Irving and running the ball is the most surefire way to a win here for the Bucks because we are talking about on the other sideline a rookie quarterback that is going to be amped up. And uh it's I got to imagine as a quarterback, there are few things that are more frustrating than standing on the other sideline, watching a long, slow scoring drive and not being able to do a damn thing. And if you can get him frustrated, then you can probably get him to make some mistakes.
Yeah. I feel like this is such a weird game because like one I expected Washington to be favored and then when I saw it was Washington +3 and their money line was +145, I expected more of the money to be on Washington,
Hmm.
but it's like 55% Washington, 45% Tampa. And the spread is even closer where it's 52% Washington, 48% Tampa. So I'm like, it seems like people are really split on this one. And I guess it wasn't what I expected with Washington being such a public team with their history and like people getting sucked
Hmm.
into the Jaden Daniels thing. I was expecting to come on here and be like, oh, like 80% of the money is on Washington, but haha, I'm picking Tampa Bay. And it just seems like opinions are way more split than that. But I am going to pick Tampa Bay. I feel like I just always doubt Tampa Bay, and then they always prove me wrong. Like I keep picking the Falcons to win the division, and Tampa keeps doing
Yeah.
it. And I'm like, Tampa's going to take a step back, and they take a step forward. And I'm just like, okay,
Week two, when they beat Detroit, I immediately regretted not picking Tampa to win the division.
yeah.
It was, I just, I knew at that point, like, yeah, there, you're
No, you can go back to the podcast where we picked Atlanta to win the division and see how much we regretted picking Atlanta to win the
Oh,
division
that at that
immediately.
point we thought at week two, I knew.
That's fair. And I also just like the thing about Baker is that no matter what the spread and the money says, he's going to talk himself into being the underdog here. And
Yep.
Jaden Daniels, everybody thinks Jaden Daniels is better than me, and I just threw 42 touchdowns, and everybody's talking about how great this rookie is. Well, fuck that guy. I'm going to go out there and like it's just so Baker, and I don't want to bet against Baker. Like I just don't bet against Baker anymore, man. I
Not a
had
good
him.
idea.
No, I had him against the Eagles in the playoffs last year. Felt very comfortable there, and then we had Detroit to beat them in the second round,
Hmm.
and it was way more uncomfortable than it should have been. And it's just like, yeah, that's just Baker Mayfield, man.
Yeah.
So, are you picking the Bucks as well? Did you say?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sticking with the Bucks.
Okay, we're five for five, and we're about to go 6 for 6, which either means we're gonna be like 6-0 or 5-1 or 1-5. Like there's no in between. I already know from talking to you that we agree on this game. Final game, Monday Night Football is the Minnesota Vikings at the LA Rams. The way I wrote LAR on my notes looks like CAR, and I was like, when did Carolina make the playoffs?
A
Uh,
very, very long time ago.
yes, this is current. I'm going to tell you right now that I might pick Carolina to make the playoffs next season. Come back next year for fouled out. Um, Vikings by 1.5 right now. It was one earlier, but money lines are minus 118 for the Vikings and minus 102 for the Rams. So this is truly like for the Bucks game, you said it was like Vegas throwing their hands up in the air.
Yeah,
This is the Vegas throws their hands up in the air game where they're like, you're not getting plus odds on anybody. Fuck you guys.
yeah,
We talked about this as soon as the Lions Vikings game was over, or I guess more accurately, as soon as I woke up because I fell asleep during the second half of the Lions Vikings game. And I text you and said, I do not like this matchup for the Vikings.
yeah.
And there are two big reasons for that. One is that Brian Flores' defense is very reliant on blitzing to be successful. They blitzed 38.9% of the time this season, which is 4.3% higher than any other team. And Matt Stafford is not a guy you want to blitz.
Nope.
He had a, I mean, I know quarterback rating or passer rating is not the end all be all, but his passer rating against the blitz this season was 103.2, which is top 10 in the league. I don't love that. The second reason that I don't like this matchup for the Vikings is that we watched this game back in week 8, back when people were like, oh, holy shit, the Vikings might be one of the best teams in the league, blah, blah, blah. And Sean McVay absolutely like exposed the defense with his game plan, and
Yeah.
Matt Stafford cooked them. And I just remember watching that game because it was when Puka Nakua's like first game back.
Yep.
And I remember watching that game with like Puka, Kyron, and Cooper Kupp all out on the field. And I was like, this quick passing game with these three guys and Matt Stafford, the Vikings have no answer for that.
No.
And it's not like okay, we're just going to make an adjustment and we're going to attack it a different way. There
Hmm.
was literally no answer. And when you have a tool like that and you give it to someone like Sean McVay, who is one of, if not the best game planner in the NFL, I I do not like that for the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah. Uh, this defensive approach could potentially work against, oh, it does work. It has worked for them against more inexperienced quarterbacks, uh, quarterbacks that rely more heavily on their legs and aren't necessarily super comfortable as pocket passers. Um, but an experienced pocket passer is going to continually eat this alive. Uh, I mean, example, the last 5 times Brian Flores has gone up against the Lions, he has given up 30 or more points. Like, Jared Goff has absolutely shredded this defense 5 times in a row. I know he didn't necessarily have like the best first half this last time, but honestly, those errors were more of his own and less of like the call getting him.
Matt Stafford threw 4 touchdowns the
Yeah.
first time these teams matched up, and we went over last week how Matt Stafford did not throw very many touchdowns this year.
Yep.
I honestly like don't love the Rams as much as a lot of other people do because they're a super confusing team to me. They do not
Yes.
start well at all. They're like last in the NFL in first quarter points per game, and the Vikings are second. Uh, so I think one of my favorite bets of this game is going to be wait until the Vikings are up early, and then in like the second quarter start betting the Rams.
Yeah.
But it's just like if you look at these teams on paper, I there's not any statistical reason that you would pick the Rams to win this game. They're like 20th in points, they're 15th in yards, they're 27th in total defense.
Yeah.
They don't do a whole lot of things great, but this is a matchups make fights type of game, and the Rams are a bad matchup for the Vikings.
Yeah.
They just
Well,
are.
and I mean, if we go to the other side of the ball too, um, I mean, one of the only things that the Rams do well defensively is that defensive line can create pressure. Like it's a pretty nasty group. Um, and I mean, you talked about Sam Darnold playing like shit last week. It's because Sam Darnold plays like shit when he's under pressure. And I mean, it's entirely possible that they're able to create similar levels of pressure without sending a ton of blitzes like the Lions did. And I mean that obviously could very easily lead to turnovers. You don't want to give Stafford extra possessions against a blitz heavy defense.
I think we're very much on the same page here. I think the really interesting thing to watch is going to be how Sam Darnold performs in his first playoff game
Hmm.
as well. Like he's been excellent this season. I will give him his props all day long, but we are now going into a completely different animal
Yeah.
against Sean McVay, and
Yeah.
I don't love that. So we agree on all 6 games. Big shocker there. So it's Chargers, Ravens, Bills, Eagles, Bucks, and Rams. Just gonna put out there that if you parlay those money lines together, it's plus 976 for the weekend. Uh, and I'll ask you the question, Matt, which one of these teams screws us out of going 6-0 this weekend? Because we agreed on all 6 games last year too, and
We
got
did.
criticized for it, and then went 5-1. And it's like, yeah, that's why that's why we agreed, is because it was the right call. Except for the one we should have known better.
Well, the one that I was most shaky on, I'll say, is Bucks Commanders. That was the one that I struggled with the most. And I really the tiebreaker for me is just that like Baker has more experience.
Yeah. Matt, that's the wrong answer. The team that's going to fuck us is the LA Chargers. they're they're gonna charge.
I know that's where you're going.
We're gonna be so
I'm gonna stand by my statements earlier.
we're gonna be so mad at ourselves next weekend. We're gonna come
We
back.
are.
We're gonna be
We're
back
gonna be
to
so pissed.
we're gonna be back to break down the divisional games on this pod next week, Thursday. And I swear we're just it's all we're gonna talk about next week is that the Chargers charge.
The entire podcast is just going to be that one scene in Rick and Morty where they get back in the ship and are crying and screaming about why do we keep doing this to ourselves?
That's how our weekend is gonna go because it's the first game. And if it happens on the first game, we're going to be sitting. It's not going to matter that we went 5-0 on all the other games. We're just going to be like, I can't believe that we picked the Chargers to win a playoff game. Oh, oh. So anyway, if things go according to our picks, next weekend it would set up Chargers at Chiefs, Ravens at Bills, Bucks at Eagles, and Rams at Lions.
Please no.
Yeah. I told you this is the
I
Matt
know.
Stafford curse.
I was well aware of that. I didn't pick what I wanted.
Yeah. If the Commanders win, the should be fighting Georges win,
Yeah.
then they'll come
Hmm.
to Detroit. Or if the Packers win, which
I very much welcome that because they cannot beat us.
yeah, I'm just gonna throw out there that the Packers Eagles is the one that I was the most torn about. I was the most torn about, and I really hope you talked me onto the right side of the fence here because I wrote down in my notebook that I was picking the Packers. I really did. I said I love love. I'm taking the Packers, but Eagles it is.
It's a weird hill to die on. Jordan Love.
It's my hill, Matt. Been on it for 5, 6 years now. But that is it for us. As always, Fouled Out can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Overcast, anywhere you get your podcast. You hit us up on Gmail, fouledoutsports@gmail.com. Really appreciate you guys listening, and we always love to hear from you. Send us your wild card picks, or let us know where you think that we're wrong. Lots of football the next couple of days. So this comes out on probably a little bit late on January 9th. Tonight, the night this podcast drops, we have the college football playoff back in action with Notre Dame and Penn State. And then Friday night, it's Ohio State at, I guess, at is not the right word, but Friday night, it is Ohio State versus Texas in the Cotton Bowl. So you got the Orange Bowl Thursday, the Cotton Bowl Friday. Then we go into Super Wild Card Cash Grab Weekend, starting Saturday at 4:30, going all the way through Monday Night Football, 8 p.m. on Monday night. So plenty of awesome, very important football. Hope you guys enjoy it. Matt and I will be back next Thursday to break down the divisional round of the playoffs, which thank God is only 4 games. All right, my friend, I'll
All
see
right.
you soon.
Yep. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye,
Bye, Rob.
Robin.